notches disappeared.
The notch is above the vent, not below the
The notch is down by the vent.
yeah.
It's where we basically, remember we lowered the vent 1/2 inch and then we swooped up to the hip? It's that point right there. Okay. Alright. So we're sewing down to that point. The other thing I didn't do before is we need to clip the vent here. So when I sewed center back and I sewed the vents together, I need to clip right at that point, right where it pivots. Okay, so right at this pivot point, we need to clip into it. On the sketch, there's a little diagram that's good also. So I'm clipping right to the point. Okay, so it releases it a little bit. Okay, now we're putting this back down. We're also going to clip right at the point where I just stopped sewing. The reason is each seam allowance needs to sew to something separate, so I'm just giving it a little bit of release. Clip there as well. Okay, so let's line everything up nicely. So now we're going to sew this side to this vent and this side to this vent, okay? When you line it up, let's look at the picture. And we're on the page, we did a whole bunch of stuff. Let's go down. Okay, we're on this picture. See how it says leave 1/4 inch space? What we're basically looking for is that fold, the notch for my fold up hem is here. When I line up the lining, I don't want it going all the way to the bottom because I might accidentally see it in the back. So I'm going to move it up 1/4 inch. Okay, everyone got that? That's basically what it's telling me. So now I'm going to sew face to face on this side of the vent. So I'm going to flip this over. You're going to look for your hem notch. There's my notch. So you're going to position this 1/4 inch up. And my hem's already done, so it's nice and clean. And then I'm just sewing that up to where I stopped sewing before, so here, okay, from the lining. Alright, so my hem notch, there, I'm 1/4 inch up, okay? And then what seam allowance is this? There's another 3/8, right? My machine at my studio cuts the thread for you, so I'm like all uncomfortable here. It's kind of like the cover stitch that you guys use where if you hit your heel on the foot, it cuts it. It's very nice. You can sew really fast. Okay, so here's this side. So let's lay this back out. Okay, so this side is to the edge here. Okay, all nice and clean. Now this side is going to sew to this edge, same thing, okay? Now on this side here, I only have 1/2 inch seam allowance at the bottom, right? So I'm going to come up 1/4 inch from the 1/2 inch mark. So face to face, flip it over. Here's my 1/2 inch notch. I'm going to move it up 1/4. And there. Sewing it to that stopping point where I sewed the 2 linings together. I'm actually going to start at the top this time just so I can see that point. Okay. run over the point, you want to go right to the point. 3/8 seam allowance. So that one's here and that one's here. So let's make sure we don't have any bubbles or nothing looks weird. So this facing is going to fold back on itself. And this one goes, oops. Okay, this one's going to fold back on itself. And this one's going to lay right on top. So there's my swoop shape, okay? My lining should be even at the bottom, and I shouldn't have any bubbles here. It should be nice and clean, okay? Now, the last step is the hem. All right, let's do the easy one first. This side is going to just fold up, okay? So you need to, what we're going to do is we're going to fold it. We're going to go back into the seam allowance, okay, like this. And you're going to fold it on your notch line, and then we're going to run over that stitch again to catch it, okay? Is everyone totally lost, or yes? This part is hard. Now, this part is not that hard if you just follow the steps. Now, all right, let me just explain what the hem looks like. So this hem's already been done, okay? Now, one side of the hem, if you look at this one, okay, this is just folded up, right? There's nothing special, it's just basically flipped up. But in order to get it clean, if you look, the seam allowance is inside of here, okay? So that's what I'm doing right now. This is basically, we're on this side, the one I just showed you. It's basically flipped up. If it's easier for you to do this, fold it up, okay? And if you go, oh, okay, I can't sew it like that, how can I sew it? It's gonna have to go in here, okay? So if you sort of organize it and go, oh, what would make it clean if I sewed it like this? So if I do that, and then I go in and grab those seam allowances, it's the same thing I just did before. Okay? It's that. Okay? So if it doesn't mean you don't understand. A lot of times I have to sit there and lay things out like that. So we're gonna do the same thing. I'm just folding it up. That's all I'm doing. Fold up. Here's my notch. Fold it. And sew it straight down. Okay, or it can go up. Okay. This side is easy. So that's 1/2 inch seam allowance we have down. Or is it that's 3/8? Back. Here's the bottom. There's it's clean. Okay, everyone's got it. So it's just folded up. It's just, you have to kind of turn it a little bit. Now I'm going to poke out my corner. So it's nice and square. There we go. I should have a 1/4 inch at the bottom where the lining is not go to the bottom. Okay, everyone's got that? So here's this side. Let's lay it out again. So this side is nice and clean. Now we have to do this side, okay? Now the other thing I want to make sure is when this whole thing is sewn together, you always want to make sure the bottoms are even. So be aware where you're folding, okay? Okay, now for this one, remember that when it's sewn, here's this one, this is the vent, it flips back on itself, right? This is actually folded. So this is where I have that 1/2 inch seam allowance, okay? So here's my vent. It's gonna, when it's finished sewing, it's gonna lay inside like this. So I'm gonna go face to face. Okay, I should have a notch at the bottom. I don't. Well, I don't know. Let me figure out where the notch is. Should have a notch down at the bottom for where this fold line is. Okay, this is going to fold back on itself. Now, here's my 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to sew this at 1/2 inch. And I'm not going to go the whole way. I'm going to stop at the sew line, just like we did with the pocket, okay? So I'm sewing right here. Everyone's got it? This is the hardest part of the entire skirt. So just, if you can get this, you're good to go. I'm going to sew right to that pin. There's other things that use this technique, so you sort of want to understand it so that you can do the other techniques. Okay, so right now, let's turn it and see what happened. So right now, I did the bottom, so you see how now it's folding back on itself, okay? But I still have to clean this little bit here, and the hem is not flipped up yet, okay? So we're going to flip this back out. Now, this is my hem. It's got to come up like this. So I basically have to get it around this corner. How do you think I'm going to flip it up? What should I do? Flip. Alright? So everyone, see this little diagonal right here? I'm going to clip like this. Just like we did on the pocket. Okay, I'm going to clip up. Clip. Now when I do that, now I can flip my hem up. There's my hem. There's my hem flipped. Everyone see that? Okay. So now, I'm going to flip this up. And I'm going to catch that little bit right there. Okay, so first I did the 1/2 inch, I clipped into the corner. Now this is my hem. My hem's going to flip up.
Is it feasible sort of is that on the outside?
No. No, this is the outside of the skirt. This is going to flip up like this. Okay. This is going to flip up. Okay. I'm going to pull it. Now, in order to not get a bubble, you kind of have to pull it a little bit tight. Okay, so I'm going to pull it tight. Flip it over. I want everyone to be sewing this when I'm here, because you're going to have questions. Okay. Now, I'm just sewing right to that clip point. This is kind of like what we did on the pocket, so it shouldn't seem that foreign. It is hard though. I'm letting you know right now. Now, let's flip this back out. Okay. Does everyone see that? So I cleaned this edge, I cleaned that edge, and I have a little, there's my fold. Everyone got it? Sort of? Okay. Okay. Looks a little bit uneven. No, we're okay. Alright, now, if I can't get a clean edge there, here's my corner. You can go ahead and clip that on the diagonal. Flip this back out. The instructions on this part are actually a little bit unclear because it's hard to really see what's happening. So I really want everyone to try and do this in class. Okay, so this is this side. This is my fold back. Okay. Here's my bottom edge. There's my 1/4 inch from the bottom, so it should look clean like this, right? You're all like, oh my god, what the hell is that? I'm telling you, it's not that bad once you can get the technique. When I was in school, I could not understand that concept. I was like, what is that? And then one day it just went, and I was like, ah. Okay. Alright, so we're nearly done. Alright, now all we have to do is hem and hook an eye on the top, and then there's one last thing we have to do, okay? On the back of the skirt, to hold the vent in place and so it doesn't fly open, is we're going to do this little top stitch here, okay? Now, there's actually a guide on the inside that's going to help you. So what we're going to do is go inside the skirt, and I'm going to find the two this is the back vent where I remember I sewed center back and then I pivoted. You're gonna run right over this line. Okay? So what I'm gonna do is lay the skirt like so. Sorry. We're gonna lay the vents on top. This is harder than it looks. Sorry. Let's lay the vent out. We have to have the skirt kind of flat when we're doing this. Okay, here's my two vents. Okay. I want to lay them nice and flat. I'm going to go inside, and I'm looking for this point here, this top stitch, diagonal. Everyone see that? This. You're just going to stitch right over it. But this time, I'm going to pin it to the back of the skirt. Okay. Let's pin it, and then let's look. And I flip it over. Ugh, not that. Don't pin it to that. Don't pin it to the lining. Alright, so I'm going to put my hand in there and just grab this. Oh, and I don't want the front either. Just grab the back. Let's pin it and see what it looks like, okay? So when I flip this over, and that doesn't look right either. Okay, hold on. I think I have to press first, is the problem. Okay, let's look at the back of the skirt first. Where I'm going to be stitching, I think I have to press. We're going to be stitching like this, just diagonal.
But you're not stitching the lining.
No,
Okay.
we're not stitching the lining. We're basically stitching the vent to the back of the skirt. So, let's stick our hand in there. It's the best way to do this. Oh, here it is. Okay. You can feel it. I got it. Okay. So what I'm pinning is the back of this to. See, I can't get it. Hold on. Okay, there it is. Alright, so we're pinning this little bit here. This is center back. My zipper's up there. Center back, then I pivot. It's this stitch line here, okay? When I turn it over, see, there it is. I'm stitching from center back on a diagonal. Alright? So let's go do that. I don't know why that was so hard. The vent was hard. That was hard. That's supposed to be easy. Okay. So I'm starting right at my center back. And I'm just running exactly over that stitch. Okay? Just back stitch it at the end. Hopefully it looks nice. Yay, okay. Success. So all of this should be pressed first, okay? But I just didn't want to get up. So there's our stitch, okay?
That keeps it from opening?
Yeah, it kind of holds everything in it, because if you don't do it, I think you, oh, I gotta correct that. I think you can actually get up in there, in the back.
Oh.
You actually, you're kind of holding everything so the vent doesn't flop around on the inside. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is just the hem. I'm not doing it, I'm just gonna show you what it looks like. Your hem is 1.5, so you're gonna fold up 1.5 the whole way. This should be overlocked, and then we're gonna do a blind hem, or cross couch actually, which is this one. Okay, try to be even the whole way. I did double threads on this only because I had denim and it's heavy. You don't need, you need a single thread for the muslin, okay? So you're going to start inside, go all the way around, and it should stay nice and pressed because there's a fusible on the inside. And then the last thing we're going to do is put a hook and eye at the top, and I will just show you that at the very end of class because we have a little bit of room here. And we want it really tight. Okay, everyone good? We're all going to match.